Welcome to Beyond Graves and Stars, the horror and sci-fi movie podcast. My name is Andy Martin, and I look at mainly horror and sci-fi franchises and reboots, remakes, that kind of thing. At the moment, I'm taking my first look into a J-horror franchise, the Tomie franchise. Adam Whybray, film scholar and fellow podcaster, is joining me on my journey through these 9 movies. Welcome to the third part. If you haven't listened to the episodes on the first 2, go back and find them, give them a listen. If you can get hold of the films, give them a watch before. All feedback welcome. This was the first time I'd seen this movie, first time Adam had seen this movie. We sat down, we had a coffee, we watched it, and these are our thoughts. Adam, thanks for returning.
Hello, always a pleasure.
How have you been? It's only been a couple of weeks, but that got around quite quickly this time.
Yeah, well, I've been all right because it's been Easter break for me as a teacher. So my partner Leah came and visited, played some board games. We watched True Stories. You ever seen that? The David Byrne directed film.
No.
It's a curio. Like, sometimes it feels a bit like some Talking Heads music video stitched
together. No. I'm in horror mode. I have seen it. Is that the one with John Goodman in it?
Yes.
That's really good.
It's charming.
I'd never heard of it till like 2 years ago, and I just went to a day in London, and it was on at Prince Charles Cinema, and I really liked it, and I'm wanting to track down this Criterion version of it.
No, I think that's the version I've got, actually. Yeah, I haven't gone through the extras yet, but it's got this sort of pretend newspaper, like local newspaper article instead, with all the essays in the form of like a local newspaper, which is cute.
Yeah, cool film.
Yeah, it was. I liked it. I think if you like David Byrne, basically, and like the Talking Heads, you'd enjoy it.
Exactly, yeah. And there's, talking of heads, there's lots of heads in this film rolling about the place.
That's true.
And so this is the third Tomie movie.
Yep.
And if you haven't listened to the other episodes we've done so far, on the first 2, I suggest you do. Watch the films. There will be spoilers. They're quite hard to get hold of. The first one's available pretty much anywhere, but they are, like most films nowadays, you can get hold of them. So we have.
This is Tomie Reply.
Yes, this is the third movie and the second cinematic release.
Yeah, and the budget is notably higher than the last one, the TV movie.
Yeah, the TV movie was an anthology one. This one, back on track, but it wasn't a huge release in Japan or anywhere. And then we just watch them, then talk about them. It's not like other podcasts where we do loads and loads and loads of research, and we just Wikipedia it after. But it was released as a double bill in 2000, only a year after the original. So I think they around this stage they were churning them out, to the almost like carry-on films in this country in the 70s.
Yeah, and this one, to memory, doesn't have any direct precedent in a Junji Ito manga. The first 2, I think, like that anthology one, I could see direct links to specific standalone stories. Whereas this one, the idea of Tomie kind of generating from other people gets introduced here, and the idea that people can maybe get infected and maybe Tomie can grow out of a part of them, that's being introduced, which is something Ito develops. So you definitely get a development of how Tomie works, and the idea of Tomie being almost virus-like is coming in here. But yeah, the actual plot and the surprisingly complicated plot structure is definitely unique to the film. Like, obviously a big fan of Junji Ito. Structure isn't his strong suit, or at least he doesn't tend to go for complex structures. If you think of something like Uzumaki, which is probably his most famous like standalone longer manga, had a anime adaptation on Adult Swim.
Oh, yeah.
Last year, which was decent. The first episode blew all the budget. Sadly, it's the first episode's really strong, and the rest of it's not so good.
Yeah.
But it is very much one thing after another. That is like, okay, people are getting infected by spirals. What creepy, messed up stuff can I do with spirals? And it is very kind of sequential.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, this is structured almost like a film noir or a mystery film. There's a lot of kind of intrigue and different characters.
There's a lot of different influences from different genres and subgenres in this, I'd say. I just want to start by talking about that open scene, because I didn't expect that.
In the hospital?
In the hospital, yeah. We didn't know whether it was just a fairly small adult or a child. We'll later find out it's a child. Wheeled into hospital, given birth.
And disturbingly, it looks like she's pregnant. So you immediately have this sort of troubling image of a small girl seemingly pregnant, but her belly looks more like a kind of bizarre bloated tortoise or turtle shell.
Yeah, and that is how we are introduced to Tomie in this movie. The head is born.
The head, in and of itself, is birthed.
I like it when you see the scan of inside, and you just sort of see a little bit. That's her face.
Yeah,
and that's how it starts almost a bit body horror.
Yeah, well, you made some comparisons to Reanimator.
Yes.
And it doesn't have the same tone, obviously, as Reanimator, but it definitely has an element of body horror and kind of science gone wrong. Although we learn that Tomie has been around seemingly forever, at least.
That's one thing with this film. It gives us more of the backstory.
Yeah, and we get
later
on a bit of kind of Tomie's psychology, which I quite like, actually. There's always that danger, like say with the Halloween films, of kind of over-explaining your supernatural killer, right? Because Michael was probably more effective as a force of evil than when you start doing this whole.
Well, I mean, this is the thing with backstories. You can go too far, and sometimes it doesn't work if you don't tell enough. Whereas I think Halloween is perfect because you've got the story of him as a child and how it happens, but it in the first one at least, it doesn't go more to that. It doesn't say why he's evil.
It's pretty.
But it sets the scene to how him as a character.
Yeah, whereas I feel like by the time you get to Halloween 4 and you've got all the kind of the family stuff, I'm not interested.
Well, we all learned in part 6 it was all to do with a cult. And it was Paul Rudd who solved it.
But yeah, I think this installation of Tomie gets it about right, actually, in terms of drawing you in, giving you a bit more detail, but she's still a pretty mysterious figure.
Yes, I mean it goes further back, but it doesn't actually say the origin.
Yeah, which I think is the right move.
Yeah, but we're only a third of the way through.
We are. That is true.
It might get ruined. Did you want to summarise the plot? I mean,
no. I knew you were going to ask me that. Okay, I'll try. I'm going to try. Let me try.
Let's say the premise instead of the plot, maybe.
Right. So, Tomie is reborn from the stomach. I don't know. Womb. I don't even want to think too much about it. Because basically, it turns out this is an organ transplant gone horribly wrong. So, a previously murdered Tomie must have come up with the ingenious plan to put herself on the organ donor register because we know that Tomie, every time she's killed, she actually is born again and gets cloned. So for Tomie, being killed is actually quite a useful thing because it helps propagate herself. So she's got herself on the organ register and so regrows from this poor girl's organ. Also, because she has virus-like properties, contaminating any of the surgeons and doctors working on this operation. So we discover early on that anyone involved in this operation has gone mad, disappeared under troubling circumstances, including the director of the hospital, who is our protagonist's dad. Can
I just say as well, this is a great plot point. So why nobody has gone to the hospital and been like, well, firstly, why was a 6-year-old given birth? And secondly, why did a 6-year-old give birth to a head?
Yeah, I mean, it's been kept pretty under wraps.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, everyone's gone mad. It didn't happen.
Yeah. So simultaneous to this, at the hospital is a young man with some kind of kidney condition. I think he clearly has urinary problems. It goes straight through him. We see him. He drinks a can of Heineken and had to go straight to the toilet afterwards.
This is the thing. I mean, I want to avoid hospitals as much as possible, like most people. But if I did get put in hospital, I'd be in that one where you're allowed to drink Heineken.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, he seems to have quite painful, I say, possibly kidney-related problems, but that's fine. Knocking back some brews with your mate.
He has one sip and has to go to the loo. I mean, I get like that after about 8 or 9, if I'm honest.
Well, like I said, I think he's got a condition, in fairness. Okay. But his friend is visiting him in hospital. They're chatting about how back in school, the fellow with the kidney condition always managed to snatch the ladies off his friend, but this time going to the toilet, he sees what seems to be a naked young woman sort of walking in a slightly strange zombie-ish way down the hallway. Thinks, oh gosh, it's just been a urine-induced hallucination, but it isn't. It's Tomie, and she is grown. She's been kept in a kind of vat of fluid or possibly acid, and has sprouted potato-like into reforming her whole body, and so needs her next provider / lover, possibly / victim, and quickly seduces the patient's friend, who very quickly, I say a bit of an incel character, very quickly falls under Tomie's spell and gets all very pathetic and needy and wretched.
Yeah. Gets on his knees at one point, going, no, don't leave me.
Yeah. Tomie, very unimpressed by this, says he's pathetic, and all of this.
Yeah, we've all been there.
It's not his fault. I mean, this is obviously the troubling aspect of the Tomie films. Is it does rather suggest that men who murder Tomie it is the victim's fault. I mean, Tomie knows what she's doing. At least Tomie gets herself killed. Obviously, comes back as she does. Sprouts a new head from her decapitated body. This obviously sends the guy completely off his rocker.
This is the 3rd film and the 5th story. Has anyone actually just sat her down yet and asked if she's all right?
No.
Maybe that's the problem.
No one talks. Well, she does say that she's very lonely, and it is true. No one really talks to Tomie, to be honest.
And if they do, they just call her a monster.
Yeah, which she hates. She hates being called. Don't call Tomie a monster. She doesn't like it.
You know, in Back to the Future, when you call Marty McFly yellow or chicken.
yeah, it is like
She's
that.
She's like that. Yeah.
Doesn't care for it. But anyway, basically,
when was the last time anyone called anyone yellow? Anyway, carry on.
Anyway, the
chicken
daughter of the hospital director who's gone mad, and Fred, I don't want to call him Kidney Boy, but boy from the hospital, young man from the hospital, who friend has also gone mad. They team up together to investigate.
Let's call him Heiny Boy.
Okay, and Heiny Boy, they team up together. So this is our way of failing to. Well, we failed to remember the Japanese names of the characters, and also would probably mangle them. I mean, I can only just manage saying Tomie rather than Tomie. Yeah. So
if you listen to the intros on the first couple of episodes, I'm sure I get it wrong.
Yeah. But anyway, they team up to investigate. It's a bit sort of mysterious. The director of the hospital left behind a diary of him going increasingly mad, which he then, of course, writes in his own blood, which is never a good sign. And then there's a kind of showdown with Tomie, who does a lot of her cackling and generally enjoying herself, to be honest. She gets a few pranks in, Tomie pranks at the end. She
does, sets it all up. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot of more effects in this movie than the previous two.
Yes.
If you're a fan of practical effects, there's some good ones.
Yeah.
If you're a fan of... Well, there's one bit that's quite bad where she's on a ceiling, and then in the... It's 2 bits of film, and you can just tell it just didn't look great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I think there's a few examples where it works. I think Exorcist 3 and Hereditary.
Yeah.
But generally, I'm not keen on people on the ceiling. I just think it looks a bit silly.
Yeah,
if I'm
daft.
honest.
Yeah.
It looks a bit daft.
Yeah, and I think Spider-Man and stuff. You just think of that.
Yeah, maybe that's the
Yeah,
issue.
but there's a lot of different, as I said before, styles of horror in here. There's obviously the supernatural style, but it doesn't rely too much on jump scares.
It doesn't, which is nice. It has that kind of um, late night, 90s, 2000s J horror thing of being quite atmospheric.
Yeah.
There's less sort of focus on technology than a lot of J horror of this era. It's not like Pulse or One Missed Call or anything.
Yeah.
But I guess a bit like Dark Water, or maybe older Japanese ghost traditions. Like, this is the first time that Tomie really recalls those kind of long black-haired, vengeful spirit girls you get in sort of Japanese horror traditions. And this is the first time, I'd say, where Tomie is quite deliberately made to look like that, like times where her hair's really covering her face, for
Which,
instance.
I mean, most people would know the image from The Ring.
I guess the most famous for Western audiences would be.
And I think that The Ring might be one of the reasons, strangely enough, looking back, that this isn't so well known as over here, because people might have just looked at the imagery and thought it was a rip-off of it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I still don't quite get why they aren't more well known. Obviously, Ringu quite quickly got Gore Verbinski's remake.
Yeah.
And then The Grudge did too.
You mentioned Dark Water, that did.
Yeah, I don't know if Asia Extreme, the DVD label, say put out any Tomie films. I don't think so.
I mean, was there not? I mean, I've got the Blu-ray box set. The Blu-ray, the first one. I'm sure there was a limited box set by Arrow of all of them.
Really? Okay.
And then it just went.
Yeah.
Maybe I dreamt that.
I mean, it's the kind of thing that I say. Junji Ito's manga's so popular now. Like, he'll get like a whole shelf load in Waterstones at this point of various shorts collections, basically. Like, don't see Tomie so much, weirdly. I guess it's a very early work, but you'll always see Uzumaki and then a bunch of the collections. And considering how popular he is again in the West with teenagers, I'm so surprised that there hasn't been a kind of big rediscovery of these films.
I think it's very strange.
Yeah.
And there's 9 films, as we say. We're on the 3rd, and this one it's picked up.
I think this is the best so far. I think, in a way, maybe in the same way that a lot of people like Dream Warriors, the third Nightmare on Elm Street, the most.
Yeah.
Right? In as much as this is the one where it really feels, I don't know, like it's leaning into the mythos, but not too hard. That there's a nice sort of mix of genres.
Yeah.
It's
done the thing as sequels should do, of just taking the elements that have worked best in the previous films and developing those elements.
Yeah.
And I think it's also when, by this point, I know it's only a year later, but probably a year and a half, closer to 2 years, with other stuff what's going on in horror at that point, it's knowing what the audience want. Because this is the time of The Ring and other things like that. Grudge was around this time as well, was it not?
Yeah, and it still has that kind of one thing that surprised me when I didn't, I watched Ringu quite late, and one thing that surprised me when I finally got round to it is how much of a kind of mystery police procedural it is. That there's often these detective, almost film noir-y elements in some Japanese horror of this period, and that's very present in Tomie. So you do get this nice mix of body horror and then mystery film.
Yeah. There's a lack of police in this movie, though.
That's true, actually, because we've got the 2 young people investigating rather than the police, unlike the police characters in the last one.
What did you think of the characters in this?
They're fine. I mean, I think so far we haven't. There's a bit more character depth in this one, in the the protagonist, and I'm trying to think. In Junji Ito, there's a girl in Uzumaki called Kyrie, I think, who's the main protagonist, and he'll often have a kind of, I don't know, sort of 18-year-old girl who looks pretty much the same across a lot of his comics, and she's pretty much the same character, even though sometimes she's got different names, and she's generally a fairly stoic, quite sensible, slightly introverted girl who doesn't have many friends and often makes friends with a guy. Like that's really common in Junji Ito, and we have the same kind of character here, basically. And she's a likable character. We get a certain amount of information about her childhood, that her dad was always busy with the hospital work, so she doesn't know her dad very well. Her mum's left, so she has this slightly sort of fractured home life. But she's a bit of an audience surrogate. I think that's generally the character's role in Junji Ito's comics as well. You generally have this kind of... I know it's odd, because the character, often his protagonist, they might panic a bit, but they remain... Often the girl who's the protagonist remains, I think, relatively calm, all things considered. You get that here as well. Like, considering what they're often put through. Like, they hold themselves together.
With her case, one thing I found interesting was with the director, her father. And yes, she doesn't know him very well, and say about the mother and everything. Like, when the mother wants to help, she's like, you're too busy, as in help her out. And, but she's also got a relationship with the woman that her father's having an affair with.
And she seems fairly accepting. She's not that upset by this affair.
No, really. Which I think, for me, made me think, made me like the character more. Because it's like, well, this has happened, let's move on.
And she wasn't very judgmental.
And that bit of the plot didn't really need to be there either. So it was just something else thrown in. There's lots of things thrown in this movie.
But it doesn't feel overstuffed, in fairness. I do actually think it's pretty well structured. Like, it didn't feel nearly as messy as it could have done.
No, I mean, I'm trying to think of an example. There's a horror film I watched fairly recently, and I can't think what it is, where I just thought, well, they've just thrown in all these things just to tick boxes. Whereas with this, I think, as I said before, they're looking at what works.
I mean, obviously, we did the Phantasm films, and I really enjoyed doing all of them. I think one of the issues they have is, like, the mythology almost gets away from... Is it Coruscant? Almost gets away from him a bit. There's a lot of moving pieces, and sometimes it starts feeling messy in a way that can be kind of exciting. Like, that's one of the charms of Phantasm. But it does feel like there's a lot of spinning plates, and sometimes you're like, oh my god, I set that up, right? Okay, let's bring that back in, and we'll have a flashback to that. And
one thing with Phantasm, they done, was it 5, was it, or 6? There was a few.
I think 5.
But it was all him. Whereas with these movies, I think you're getting, so far we've picked up on it already, different people putting their input.
But we've still got Junji Ito as the kind of
overseer.
I guess it's the original creator and the source material. So you still have this common source to draw from, which has lots of stories. But everyone can bring their own interpretation.
Much like with the way this film ended as well, you can't not talk about Freddy Krueger and Nightmare on Elm Street.
It starts feeling weirdly nightmare-like.
It does, and the stuff in the hospital towards the end with the big showdown very much reminded me of the end of a Nightmare on Elm Street film, where whatever final girl, final boy is left has a battle with Freddy. You get this with Tomie. And the hospital, it's this bit set in, and there's lots of fire and all this going on. It's very reminiscent of a boiler room scene with Freddy Krueger.
Totally. It must be an influence. Like, it was clear. It really did look like that. Yeah,
and even the friendship between the younger characters is very Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm not saying it's ripping Nightmare on Elm Street off.
No,
there's a lot of this sort of thing, and this is what I compare it to because of how what I grew up loving. The first long series of this I'd done on any film was Nightmare on Elm Street, but the relationship between the young characters is good, and I like that because they're all they get on and help each other. Whereas in, say, Friday the 13th, you get that group of teenagers, but often there's not the bonding. It's just they're just there to be taken out. Whereas in this and in Nightmare on Elm Street, they are characters there for a reason other than just to die. Because there's not a particularly high body count in this. There are some deaths.
No, there are some deaths, and some ones that you might not automatically expect, I guess. But I think they're well spaced. And
this one was definitely more gruesome than the others.
Oh yeah, it's definitely got some splattery effects.
I mean, I can't find the certificate, but I reckon it was a 15. It's at least a 15.
I mean, the scene that I found most effective from a horror standpoint was the flashback to what happened in the hospital.
Yes.
When you see the Director General and the staff going mad, and
Yeah.
one of them smashing their head against the wall, and another one sort of writhing around on the floor. And I actually found that the sound design's really good in that sequence, and I
Yeah.
actually found that slightly disturbing.
That was, and that was almost. Well, that was. Yeah,
I
might
guess
have been something more modern.
It reminded me of Exorcist 3, actually.
Yeah, well, yeah, but also some of the ways it's shot on that, it's not as violent, but a bit like Saw of the grittiness, but not as much.
Yeah, I don't know if it was messing around with frame rate.
Yeah.
Maybe because it did have that. It did remind me a bit of Saw in the jerkiness of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, there were bits that I found, slightly disquieting or chilling or suspenseful.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it's not a romp. I suspect by the time we get to maybe later Tomie films like Tomie versus Tomie, it might be getting rather more silly.
But that's why I was about to bring that up, because here it says that Tomie versus Tomie is this film, but I don't think it is.
No, I think
they get this because they've had small releases.
Yeah,
it's quite hard to find out that much information on them. And I don't mean next we've got Rebirth,
and that's quite confusing because obviously this started with a Rebirth scene.
Yeah.
So I did wonder. I thought, oh, has Andy put the wrong one on?
Yeah.
Are we watching the fourth one? But no, this was the third film.
Yeah. So like I say, so far so good for me. I mean, a bit of there was a dip with the second movie.
I think knowing it was a TV movie, we both kind of knew that it was maybe not going to be as strong.
Yeah, but I mean, with this is already, if it's a late night and I want to put a Tomie film on, this is the one I'm going to.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. It was good. Like, and I think,
bits of it you could tell the production value wasn't always great in it. I think the set pieces, the bits what are meant to be scary, worked.
Yeah.
But then a lot of it did feel a bit hospital drama. But that could be because it's set in a hospital and the budget wasn't that high.
I don't mind the fact that it's a bit low key and talky though, because I felt the mystery aspects were effective enough. Also, I guess I'm not the biggest slasher fan. Like, I guess I didn't grow up with them. Yeah. So I did come to them later, and actually, I think I've said to you, I prefer the later Nightmare on Elm Street films to the earlier ones. I actually probably enjoy 4, 5, and 6 more than 1, 2, and 3, because actually I like Freddy transforming into weird things. I like looking out for the next bizarre special effect. I guess I never found, maybe I came to Nightmare on Elm Street too late to really find them scary. So I was never particularly expecting to find Freddy that scary a character.
This is something I never touched on, I don't think, when I done the season on them, is if you did come to the films late, it must be difficult to find that original one scary.
Yeah.
Because you're used to what he became.
I think that's true. Also, I don't know. I do think they maybe speak to a teenage audience particularly. It's very sort of focused on the teens. I guess, but maybe it's also expectations. I came into the original Nightmare on Elm Street, with it billed as one of the great horror films, and for me, I was like, well, this does not stand up for me.
Yes, I was like, you are allowed to be wrong.
Yeah. Next to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is, a properly grueling watch. It's a horrifying film, even watched decades later. Yeah. And so I think I was a little bit like, I liked it, but I didn't think it was the same level as Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then maybe because 4, 5, and 6 are often talked about as, these are really not very good, I've heard pretty derogatory things about them. I was like, I enjoyed this a lot more than I was expecting.
Yeah, I mean, I like them all for different reasons, but yeah. And was it? Did you do part 5 on here?
Yeah,
because you hadn't seen it before.
No, and I liked it.
Yeah.
So I think.
Have you since watched part 6 then?
Yes, which I also I think it's got some ropey stuff, but I also quite enjoyed it.
It's the 90s one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very 90s.
They go in the video games, but in a way, because of we know we've got 6 films left.
Yeah.
I kind of want it to go more fun, more gory.
Yeah, I think it's going to have to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also interesting comparing Tomie as a monster, right, to, Western monsters like Freddy, Jason, Michael.
Yeah.
Because
When you say Michael, do you mean that new film? What's coming out about that scene?
Not that monster. No.
Okay. Carry on.
So, Tomie, maybe like some people feel about the other Michael, is a sympathetic monster, or a pit. You feel there are times where she's a really interesting character, right?
Yeah.
There are times where she could be gleeful and you're kind of reveling in her evil in the way that you can with Kruger, right? There are other times where you do feel sorry for her because she is trapped in this kind of interminable, endless existence of dying and being reborn and dying and being born, and she talks about this. You know, you see this sort of flashback of a seemingly earlier Tomie saying, "I want to die, and she can't. She'll never die."
So she just enjoys what she does.
Yeah. And she is victimised by often these rather unsympathetic kind of incel-like men. At the same time, she's kind of a sadist and she's manipulative and she enjoys herself. So she's a really interesting character because, there are times where you think, oh yeah, get that Tomie, she's terrible, and other times where you feel kind of aligned with her and quite like her, really.
Well, this is the thing, if the stories were just tweaked a little bit, she could be a hero
going
around after men who are complete wrong-uns.
And that's why I think, while on some level you can say, yeah, this has a misogynist premise, I do think they're slightly more interesting than that.
Yeah.
Because generally speaking, the male victims are not very sympathetic.
Yeah.
They're generally pretty wretched.
I mean, you could be you can imagine if, say, I don't know, there was a documentary about, I'll just pick a random, Russell Brand, right? There's a documentary about Russell Brand, and when it ends, you just see Tomie's face pop up, looking at him. You'd be like, yes.
You really would. It would be very easy if one was so inclined to do a reboot of Tomie, and have her completely as the kind of vengeful, heroic figure.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of makes her quite interesting, and it's generally only when she's up against another young woman where we see her fully as the villain, I think, which is interesting. So it is a bit like when you get the good girl versus the bad girl, then we're on the side of the good girl, maybe.
And one thing in this film as well, you pointed out, it's like, well, why is she going after this girl? It's not really
like in the first two films, Tomie only goes after girls if they seem to be potentially getting in her way, or there's some kind of rival, basically, which she doesn't like. But here, it does feel a little bit arbitrary that Tomie has any interest in killing this girl.
And she's only really after her, or, doing any sort of Scooby-Doo solving, because she's after her missing dad.
Yeah, who she finds.
Yeah, quite weirdly easily.
She just stumbles into him, and he's completely
gone.
Yeah.
I do want to mention the being pushed down the stairs thing.
that did make you laugh.
Yeah, well, she fell down the stairs quite slowly, and I don't know if it was a stunt woman or not, but probably stunt person. But then there's like it stopped and then sort of rolled on purpose, then went down more steps, which I thought was amazing.
It was quite funny.
And I don't know. I should probably put that on our socials when I put the things up. I'm going to do it. I'm going to find that bit and then do it.
But as I was hinting towards, though, you get a bit more of Tomie's sort of psychology to a degree here, because she is this sort of odd, conflicted kind of monster. Because on some level, she doesn't really get humans. We get a bit of Tomie monologuing as a villain's monologue towards the end of the film, and Tomie does a lot of sort of saying humans are pretty stupid. She's like, humans, you trust each other even when you've been betrayed. She says, you're so weak. So she has this kind of contempt for humans, but at the same time, she does talk about being lonely, and you feel like she does want to be understood, and she doesn't like it when people call her a monster. And one of the Tomies complains about being underground, like I guess in the grave, and how she doesn't like all the bugs and the worms. So there are times where she's sort of vulnerable and lonely, but then she pushes people away.
She's almost like a reverse incel herself.
She kind of is, weirdly. She is almost like a female incel, interestingly. But people don't talk to her, like you said. Like,
But maybe if she was nicer.
to be fair, she's not very nice.
No.
She is quite mean, and and then when she does something weird, she tends to cackle in an evil way, or like go, oh, ho, 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 which doesn't help matters very much.
Yeah. So, I wonder if she puts that on a dating profile. It's a solid movie, and so just trying to think of. We've got the next one coming up to look forward to. Should we start the rankings? So,
all right, we did do that with Phantasm, didn't we?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's easy, right?
Yeah.
I think so far it's going to be 3, 1, 2, right?
That is exactly my thinking.
Yeah.
So no arguments yet.
No arguments yet. Yeah, we'll see. I do wonder, because if the later ones get really daft and gonzo, I suspect it might be you, Andy, who's like, yes, top tier Tommy A.
Exactly.
And me being turning my nose up.
Yeah. But also, I do hate rating a sequel above the original. Just something in my brain goes, it shouldn't, because this sequel wouldn't exist without it. So therefore.
Well, Halloween 3 Season of the Witch it's not better than 1, but it's
good though, isn't it?
It's good though.
Yeah, but there are a few sequels that are better than originals. So, I always say Hot Shots Part 2 if I'm talking about proper films, and if we're talking about something a bit dafter, Godfather. There we go. But I haven't seen Godfather Part 2 for a very long time, so I don't know. I've seen
people
the first one
always say it, and I probably agree with Empire Strikes Back, right?
Yeah, no, Ewoks. I like the third one.
Checks out. Yeah.
So, we'll wrap it up, I think, and then we'll be back at some point, won't we?
Hopefully. I mean, I'm back doing my supply teaching, but to be honest, sometimes you need a break from supply teaching, and if my bank balance is looking okay-ish, I'm inclined to be like, right, I'm skipping a day. That's one of the few jobs, for all the bad things about supply teaching, which is that kids will give you a lot less respect because it's hard to build relationships. Other teachers kind of look down on you, and sometimes don't leave you any cover work. One of the advantages is, if you're really not feeling it and you've got you're doing okay, you could be like, right, I'm not doing it today. I'm skipping a day.
Well, as we record this is the Tuesday after I thought everyone went back to school.
Well, it is.
So yesterday I went out thinking, good, all the kids are back in school.
Yeah.
Right. And I wanted to walk around the park before I
nice.
But there was kids everywhere, and I'm not going to walk around the park when there's loads of kids.
Oh, PD days, a lot of schools.
Yeah, well, this is what days. I kind of found that out later. So I went instead. I just went and done some shopping. I went and sat in Starbucks, where people had told me that some of the schools,
some of the primaries more than the secondaries.
But loads of kids, like loads of them, and then. I'm like, okay, so PD day is what used to be parent training day, teacher training day.
Yeah.
Should do a parent. Anyway, teacher training day. And then as I'm walking back to where I live and where I work, there is a school. And I could just hear loads of kids laughing, shouting.
Not at you.
No, just in general.
Okay.
But I was like, right, I'm not looking at the school to see because I'll get arrested.
Oh,
and I'm like, but I'm not looking at school, but am I hearing ghosts of Victorian children? And then it freaked me out a bit.
Yeah.
And also on parent training day, teacher training day, when do the people who train them get trained? Do they get another day off? Does it all work?
I don't think it does. I think the thing to do is you're a teacher for like 2 years, and then you set yourself up as some kind of consultant and never have to teach again and get paid more.
I'm in the wrong job.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. So anyway, so as well as learning about the third Tomie film, we've told you about teacher training days.
Yeah.
And that's the first time I've said it without saying parent training days.
Okay, well, thanks. Oh, I should probably my own podcast.
Yes, we should give that a mention. I enjoyed the last episode.
Did you listen to some a lot? So, Still Scared, talking children's horror with me and my friend Ren Wednesday, and the last episode was on Robert Cormier.
Yes.
The American young adult writer who doesn't seem to be very well known at all outside of America, but is mostly known for being banned in loads of schools across the States. I'm not going to lie, for some fair reason, some of his books really are quite remarkably dark and gloomy for a young readership. So we talked about I Am the Cheese, which is my favourite. It's a very strange book that kind of cuts between boy on his bike and boy being interrogated, possibly in a mental hospital. His last book, called The Rag and Bone Shop, which is another boy being interrogated, this time for murder. And then Fade, which is a sort of Invisible Man story that has some really messed up stuff in it. I was fairly astonished at some of the things that were in that book. So if you're interested in some pretty transgressive kind of children's young adult literature, check it out.
Can I ask? I don't know as we're recording. What have we got next?
Oh, what we have next is...
If you hear them sirens, that's just because we're talking about it. And these books are quite harsh. Anyway, carry on.
No, what we have next is Clive Barker's Barker's children's book. Yes. So Clive Barker, as in Hellraiser, Barker, released a kids' book called The Thief of Always.
Looking forward to it,
which is very odd so far. I've started it. It's strange.
Because last year there was an animated movie come out called Zoo Apocalypse or something.
Oh, yeah.
He done the story for that. So because that's why I went to see it. Because I'm like, I was on a mission last year to see 300 films in the cinema.
Yeah,
smashed it. So I was going to see everything. But by the end of the year, I was trying to avoid going to see kids' films. But then when I saw this one came out, and he done the story, and it was pretty good.
It's definitely not a horror director you would assume would have also written stuff for kids.
No, especially when you look into him as a person as well. Didn't do anything wrong, but he's
just a bit of a deviant. I think basically a law-abiding, pretty decent deviant. Yeah, but a sort of a cheerful deviant.
Yes, yeah. But we can't say his name 3 times or he'll appear.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, and hopefully we'll be back sooner rather than later. Chabai. What did I say that for? Bye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Jem.
And I'm Victoria.
And we are childhood best friends with a true crime podcast called
The Criminal Crack. During each episode, one of us presents a true crime case to the other.
And the listener has no idea what the case will be.
So every reaction, question and twisted theory you hear is genuine and off the cuff.
So join us fortnightly on the platform of your choice.
And find us on Facebook, Instagram and TikTok by searching @The Criminal Crack.
Bye-bye.
Keep on trucking.